So, welcome back, friends, to continue our discussion on the characteristic features of Indian diaspora. In the previous class, I talked about the geographical spread of Indian diaspora across the globe, and then some of the characteristic features of Indian diaspora, like how they are contributing as agents of cultural preservation in other countries, how they are initiating changes in their policies and their approach towards India, and how they are acting as soft power and economic forces. So they have been contributing in a big way, and to continue with that, in this lecture, we are again talking about some of the more characteristic features of Indian diaspora, like language, identity, and their heritage in the Indian diaspora. So, here we go. So, friends, all of us know that India is a multilingual uh, or multicultural society, and all the Indians don't speak the same language. So, we have a very rich heritage when it comes to language. We all speak different languages, and we continue to use them at home. This is not different when we migrate from our country to other countries. We continue to practice our own language at home, and outside we use the languages that are agreeable or that are practiced in those countries. So we find that the Indian diaspora also have the same multilingualism, because people from different parts of the country have migrated. So they all speak different Indian languages. They often use native language as at home, as we do here, because this gives them a sense of connectedness to their culture. And again, mind it, friends, we always feel more comfortable, and we give more emotional value to our mother tongue. And that is the reason, at least the first generation diasporics, they always try to preserve their own language, and they also try to communicate it to their future generations, although subsequently we find that the future generations have less connect with the native language compared to the first generation people or the parents. They conduct rituals in Indian languages. All of us know that the different regions of India celebrate different kinds of festivals, and the rituals are mostly in the common in the local languages. So we find that here also the different people belonging to different states of India, they conduct their rituals in their own languages. They also open community schools where most of the Indian languages are taught, so that the future generation kids, or the kids born to these diasporic parents, also establish some kind of understanding and bond with the Indian language. So, but then, as I said, the first generation people, since they have spent their formative years in India, and they have picked up their own language so well that they never feel at home in any other language, and it becomes the language of their emotion. They are the people who take pride, or who take every opportunity to exercise their native language wherever they feel it can be used. But then the same is not true of the subsequent generations, as I said, the second and third generation, and subsequent generations of Indians often use other languages than Indian, because they are more exposed to outside environment. Let's say the children born to Indian parents in the US, since they are mostly in their schools, in the company of their friends, and outside home they are using American English. So that becomes kind of first language for them. In a sense, they are using it for most period of the time, and that is the reason why, these children have less connect and less emphasis on their native tongue. And even if they use the native tongue, their tone is different and they sound sometimes foreign. So it results in the birth of hybrid language sometimes, and they mix the languages. So there is code switching, code mixing kind of thing. um, we have seen mostly, since the Indians also don't share the same language, some speak Hindi, some speak Tamil, some Malayalam, some Gujarati, some Punjabi. So even for Indians also, there is not one language that is used across the board. So they enter into some kind of understanding uh, in developing a language that is a curious mix of several languages. So if we talk about the Caribbean Hindustani, and last to last year I visited Fiji, and I heard the Fijian Indians speaking. I found that they have a curious mix of Bhojpuri uh, and some other languages, Gujarati and other languages as well. So although they are speaking Hindustani, they call it not Hindi, like Caribbean Hindustani is a mix of Bhojpuri, Awadhi and Creole in Caribbean islands. So it results in a new kind of language. So we find that the language that the diasporic communities speak over a period of time, they mix many languages and dialects and freely, take words from other Indian languages. Likewise, if we talk about Singaporean Tamil, certainly it is different from Tamil back home, because it mixes several languages. uh, and so the languages that are used by these diasporic people are also a curious case of inquiry, and we find that there is lot of language shift and lot of hybridization happens in the diasporic communities. Film and media, well friends, Indian Bollywood is one of the biggest in the world, and one of the most popular also, and people around the world through Indian community enjoy these Indian movies. And these movies are not only important as means of entertainment and for spreading Indian cultural ethos, they are also significant as linguistic connectors. So we find that all the Indians across the world enjoy Indian movies, irrespective of which Indian language they have been uh, made in. So Indian films, music, TV dramas also play a very significant role in promoting Indian languages in host countries, and even among the Indian diasporic community, they act as a bridge. So we find that people enjoy any content in Indian languages. Not only that, many people have learnt Hindi because of the Hindi movies. So this is also acting as a means of promoting language. Um, and not only the Indians, but the people abroad, they also learn our language in order to understand our movies. So films and music and TV dramas have also played a significant role in spreading our languages across the globe. They also serve as a powerful connector to homeland, heritage and community, in that, you know, the people abroad always feel homesick, nostalgic, and when they listen to Indian music or watch Indian movies, they feel connected. They believe that they have never been out of the country. So, these films become a very important media of connecting the Indian people across the globe. And not only that, through Indians, they also connect other people to our Indian languages. So there was a time when, in Russia, Raj Kapoor was very, very popular, a common name almost, and his song Mera Juta Hai Japani was a big hit. And a couple of years back, I visited Egypt, and wherever I went, I found that the Indian uh, movies are so popular. People would start chanting Sarukh Khan, Amitabh Bachchan, and it was amazing to see the impact that the Indian movies have, created in other countries. So it's not that they are, just connecting the Indian people with their home. They are also spreading cultural awareness and awareness about the Indian heritage across the world. So they function as cultural lifeline, to say the least. And in countries like Canada, the UK, the USA, and Australia, we find that Indian songs and films are very, very popular, hugely popular, and so they are acting as linguistic connectors across the globe. Film and songs are emotional connectors too, as I said. They evoke nostalgia for the homeland. You might recollect there was a very famous song performed by Pankaj Udhas in a popular Hindi movie called Naam, Chitti Aayi Hai. And we find that the diasporic community people, they all become emotional at the end of the song, and they all start hugging each other and crying. It seems that the words have magic and they are transporting them to their own homeland, to their own near and dear ones. So, film songs, evoke that kind of emotional response among the diasporic people, and they very eagerly await the release of an Indian movie or song, and they become their means of relaxation, their means of connectedness to their own cultural roots. So they create kind of emotional resonance and also a sense of shared experience. So recently, when I visited UK, I visited the home of one of the Indians there. Inside the home, we stayed for a couple of hours, and I never realized I am in any different country, because inside the smell, the sound, the talk, everything was in a familiar language, everything was familiar. So I believe that these diasporic people, wherever they are, within their homes, they try to live their Indian life, and they are closer to their culture. And these films and songs, they help them connect to their home culture. Again, community building, is very, very important for survival in diaspora, and we find that uh, the Indian diasporic people, wherever they are, they have formed very strong communities. In Fiji, I found that they call each other bhais. So, and they follow, mostly the people I met, Arya Samaji, rituals. So they follow that, and they connect to each other as if they are all bhais. And so the communities are so well knit that people know about each other. Anything that happens with any of the members is known to everybody. Any celebration is a common celebration. So, um, we find that films and songs again, help in building this community, because they have topics that are common among the diasporas. They all miss their home, their food, uh, their Indian culture, the elaborate festivals, and so these movies, they connect them to their home. So film screening and music concerts always bring all these people together, and at that point in time we find that the Indians, forgetting about their physical and superficial divides, become one community. Films and songs also help in building social connections and bonding and bridging the linguistic and regional divides. In that, we find that any content that is Indian, whether it is in Malayalam, Tamil, or Bhojpuri or Hindi, it all becomes dearer to Indian community as a whole, and so it acts as a bridge across the linguistic and regional divides as well. When we talk about the identity in the Indian diaspora, and the fiction of Indian diaspora abounds with questions of identity. So there will be a lot of talk about identity, because the diasporic people have a different sense of identity altogether. Born and brought up in a country uh, where they are born under a particular social setup with a standard understanding of the identity markers. When they cross their borders and land in another country, where uh, they find that every second person looks different, is of different race or different nationality, speaks different language, identity for them becomes a paramount question. So they feel the difference. So the identity markers that were true in their own country, they suddenly become alien in another country. So it becomes very difficult for them to balance their Indian and local identities. So, they try utmost best to play their Indian identity to the best possible within the home. They practice their rituals, they also perform their religions, they enjoy their own Indian delicacies, but outside their identity is different. So they have to look different, they have to behave differently, and so this becomes very, very difficult for them. But for their survival, they have to strike a balance between their Indian identity and their local identity. We find that the first generation people identify themselves strongly with the host country, and that is not unique for India as well. The Indian diasporic community also holds this, that the first generation diasporic people are strongly connected to India, and so they clutch on to their Indian identity very strongly, while the second and third generations being born and brought up in the host country feel closer to the host nation, and are kept wondering at times what their true identity is. So there are acute crises in their lives regarding the identity. Uh, a case in question is Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri, which we will be discussing later on, we find how Gogol is a confused lad and finds it difficult to strike a balance between the Indian culture and the American culture, between the value systems that are propagated, that are entrusted upon him by his parents, and the outside world. So we find that the first generation people have strong ties with their home country, but the subsequent generations, develop a kind of hybrid identity, uh, in that they don't feel that kind of connect with their home country, which they have come to know about through their parents. So it results in a hybrid kind of identity. They feel much more comfortable speaking in the local language, and their uh, tone is also very much like the local people, so they don't sound foreign to them. And but then look wise they are different, and that's why they carry hybrid identities. They speak the same language, they are naturalized citizens, but still racially uh, they are different, so they can be easily identified as people belonging to some other country. So there are frequent local cultural conflicts between Indian and local identities. Back home, the Indian parents want their children to behave in a certain way, don't enter the kitchen with your shoes on, or blah blah. I mean, whatever is pertinent to the Indian parents, given their sense of purity and religion. um, and outside they find that things are different. So there is this perpetual tension between the Indian value system and the local value system for these kids born out of diasporic parents. So they always feel this kind of tension, and this results in identity crisis as well, because they always feel torn between their Indian heritage and local identity, and they don't know what they have to uh, cling to. Whatever they do, they always have that kind of confusion whether they have to do it in Indian way or the local way. Caste, religion, and religious identity. Although we find that, unlike in India, the caste identity is not that rigid in the host countries, because they are living in a different kind of social setup where people never talk about caste. So people are not encouraged to go into the details of caste, and for them it's important to know that uh, somebody is from India, their own motherland, so that uh, however we find that sometimes, since diasporic communities are very close communities, and there is a concept called Dalit diaspora, and this Dalit diaspora um, does not subscribe to the view that the Indian diasporic people don't practice caste hierarchies in diaspora. They believe that the diasporic communities also, in their own subtle way, other the people belonging to the lower strata of the society, or lower caste people from India, which they call Dalit diaspora. Then there are regional and religious identities as well. So we find that regional identity remains very strong in diaspora, and this is understandable as well. People belonging to a particular religion or particular region share much more in common than the people of other parts of the country or other faiths, and that accounts for more closeness among them. So the sense of Durga Puja that the uh, Bengalis will have, uh, the same sense of Durga Puja a Tamilian may not have. So the regional identity and religious identity, they are also very strong among the diasporic communities. Like Sikhs in Canada and UK have very strong networks amongst themselves. Gujaratis in US and UK dominate business and have very good bonding between them. Tamilian people have strong political and cultural influence in Sri Lanka and Malaysia. So we also find that although in general the diasporic Indians are closer to each other across their regional and religious identities, but still, they also practice strong ties based on their regional affiliations and religious faith. So we can safely say that Indian diaspora is also not a homogeneous group, and obviously so, because India itself is not a homogeneous country. We find people of different faiths and different linguistic communities, different cultural groups. So the same kind of variety and diversity may be found in the Indian diaspora as well. Um, we also have diasporas based on common interests, like we have Indian merchant diaspora. It talks about the migration for business purposes, mostly during 15th 16th centuries, from different Indian states and religious identities. And during colonization and post colonial era, we found that people migrated from various regions and different religions as well. So most of the Indian diasporas are Hindu. If we talk about, they are greater in number. However, Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Jains, Parsis, Anglo Indians, they are also in good number. If we look at the global distribution of Indians based on their religious faith, we find that 51% are Hindu, 18% are Christians, 11% Muslims, 5% Sikhs, 2% Jains, and rest 10 unaffiliated, means they belong to all other different minority groups. So we can see that the majority, and rightly so, given the population dynamics of India, where we find that the Hindus are most in number, they are the people who top the chart of Indian diaspora as well. So if we talk about religious population in South Africa, we find that it comprises 47.3% Hindus, 24.6% Muslims, 24.4% Christians, and 3.7% others. Heritage and cultural practices, as I said earlier as well, the Indian diasporic people always, love their heritage and try to preserve it at all cost. Sometimes endearingly, I tell people that many of the Indians abroad are more Indian than most of the Indians back home, because it is only after crossing the borders you realize who you are and what is valuable to you. So we find that the Indian diasporic community celebrates all the Indian festivals and rituals ceremoniously and with a lot of excitement and interest. Festivals like Diwali, Holi, Eid, Pongal, Chhat, etc., they have become global, and it's a very good to see that many of the top notch countries are now recognizing the value of these Indian festivals, and they are also declaring holidays on these particularly on these Indian festivals. So this again, in a way, our yoga, we celebrate the International Day of Yoga on 21st of June, and we find that many of the Indian heritage, has already been recognized by the all world bodies. So our festivals like Diwali, Holi, Eid, Pongal, Chhat, they have become known to the rest of the world because of our diasporic community. Again, food is a kind of cultural symbol and marker of heritage, and it is through our diasporic community that many Indian outlets have opened around the world, and it's interesting and encouraging to see. And during my foreign visits, I always try to find an Indian restaurant, given my own craving for Indian food. And I notice with some kind of curiosity that in Indian restaurants we have a sizable number of local population or people belonging to different nationalities also enjoying the Indian cuisine. So we find that the diasporic community has been able to take the Indian cuisine and Indian food across the globe. And again, when we look at them, these are also their cultural symbols. So the different Indian people always go for different kind of food. So while in some part of the country we'll find that the breakfast will comprise uh, something else, in some other part it is something else. So the food habits are also different, and they also act as cultural symbols or markers of heritage. So people from Tamil Nadu will have a different kind of food, and will attach different kind of value to different to their food compared to people from Delhi or Punjab or Haryana or Bengal. So, and again, there is traditional clothing and fashion, and this is again region specific, religion specific, but mostly we find that the Indians abroad, in order to show their Indian heritage, will use saris or salwar kameez, kurta, etc. Um, but we find that the younger generation kids will have a hybrid kind of sense of food, in that they will mix the Indian cuisine with the Western cuisine, and even in their dressing also we might find that some part of it is Indian and some part of it is Western. So traditionally we find that during the festivals people go for dhoti kurta or kurta pajama, but the young generation kids sometimes are spotted wearing kurta and jeans. So we find that the Indian diaspora is a very intriguing, interesting world, and we are trying to make sense of it. And we believe that our proper understanding will result in appreciation and understanding of the fiction that is based on these kind of experiences. So we continue this discussion in the next class as well. Mind it, friends, these are our earlier classes, and I intend to give you a very strong background of the Indian diaspora, so that when we start talking about the fiction of Indian diaspora, you are able to make sense of the life of diasporic people and how that has been portrayed by the diasporic writers. So these are some of the sources that you can again refer to, which have also helped me in bringing out the facts and figures that I shared. So you may refer to them for your further studies. So, thank you very much. We will again continue this discussion in the next class. Thank you.